Hey guys, so welcome to the secondary squat day, which has changed a significant amount in the past, I'd say like 12 months, ever since last year's prep. I really enjoyed my secondary squat days up until recently, where squats just hasn't been feeling the same for some specific reason. I don't know what it is. I feel like I'm off midfoot pressure or something or other, and I really thought that it was from the weight gain after the big drop I did last year, where last year I went down a full weight class, so I went from under 110s to under 100s, and when I did that, squats just felt amazing. I was kind of scared when I was doing the weight loss that my squats would go down a significant amount, but I had the opposite effect and I increased it by 10 kilos. Well, first off, I just equaled my squat PR mid last year, where in the under 110s I was able to squat 240. Then when I went to my first competition under 100s, which was at Hobart last year, I was able to squat 240 again. Then at USAPL Nationals 2024, I was able to squat the 250, which was kind of unusual, seeing as though I did lose weight. But at the same time, when you do lose or gain weight, there are leverage changes, and it could be advantageous or disadvantageous. It just depends on the person, and I don't think you need to anticipate it. You just let things happen. You stay, training strong and everything like that, but you just let it happen. Don't anticipate anything, because with deadlifts, I was anticipating that would increase with a bit of belly loss. That is a very common thing for some people to feel. I know Aaron Carew told me that when he does do a bit of weight drop, his deadlifts feel significantly better. And that's what I was anticipating. But then I had my issue with my back and everything like that. So then, deadlifts didn't really get better up until at the end of last year. So, it was just weird that squats haven't been feeling the best up until we changed from our pause squats. So usually we did ascending pause squats, where we would ascend it up into a top set, usually a top single. We did that for a while and that felt very good. And I was able to do the top single relatively heavy. I was going up and, I would say I was doing 240 on a heavy top single on my regular squats, and then I was doing 230 on my pause squats for a heavy single. And I was able to handle that really well. The fatigue wasn't affecting me. The start of this year as well, when I did increase my body weight a bit, my squats were going up, and I was able to double 240 on my regular squats, and I was able to double 230 on pause squats. So again, 10 kilos off was a relatively regular thing for me to do. And then recently, at the start of the year, I went on holidays and stuff like that. I didn't train that frequently. I think squats did take a little bit of a hit because I wasn't squatting as much and I was walking a lot. So that was really weird to get used to, where coming back into the gym, bench was feeling significantly better. Deadlifts, we're just trying to figure out, we'll only swap to conventionals really recently, but squats I couldn't figure out, and it didn't feel good. The changes we wanted to make on the secondary squat to get used to the midfoot feeling was changing to a high bar instead of having low bar, which, look, even though I don't feel like I'm back to what I used to feel last year's squats and the start of this year's squats, I think that it is a lot better. I think that with the high bar squats, I'm able to really get into midfoot pressure and practice that a lot more without worrying about bar placement up top. I can just rest the bar on the top of the back. It is a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit weird to get used to, but it is something that I can just place on my back and just focus on the midfoot pressure. And then we're actually leading into a top single low bar. Originally it was paused last block, but this block we're actually doing a regular single, which is very unusual, but I am keen to give it a try and see how it goes. As this competition coming up in, I think we're 3 weeks out, it's not a competition I'm hella focused on in terms of, increasing my total by a significant amount, like 100 kilos. That'd be great if I can, but I don't think that's going to be the case. So we're really just playing around, fucking around and finding out, just seeing what works, what sticks and what doesn't. And then from there we can perfect that and focus that on a end of year comp where we treat that a little bit more seriously. But I am keen to see how these high bars go and how long we can really stick with them for. Whether or not, we do go back to a low bar paused and see if that works better after doing these high bars. But yeah, the major differences I've been feeling is just the bar placement up top. So when we can do the bar placement up top really well, we can just focus on just sticking with a midfoot position and not worrying too much about everything else. Because with low bars, I do feel like that the bar placement does really affect the midfoot. Well, I know that, I don't think that. It's very much a big difference. If you place the bar in a specific way, that's going to affect your midfoot pressure. But with high bars, because you're naturally just sticking to the midfoot and you don't really need to worry too much about, hinging and everything like that, it just helps you be like, hey, this is what you're meant to feel and this is what you should feel in low bars. If you don't feel it in low bars, let's change it, let's figure it out, and let's fix it up. But yeah, I do like how I am pushing these a little bit pretty hard. I feel like that the weights that I can push are relatively heavy. I can get up to about 170 pretty comfortably. We changed high bars last block halfway through the block, and I was able to get to a 170 working set pretty comfortably by 6. I'm not feeling as exhausted cardiovascularly like I was last block with low bars. For some reason, I was just feeling quite exhausted from doing it. I was able to, originally when I was doing low bar pause and I felt really comfortable doing it, I was able to just push through it, put whatever weight on, and I'm just going to do it. It doesn't really fucking matter how hard it is. I don't feel exhausted cardiovascularly, but then for some reason, last few blocks, I was just feeling quite drained from doing it. I wasn't really able to progress it as much as I was able to again the previous blocks. But with this squat, I'm able to feel like I can progress these, even though this weight is heavy, like 170, and it's giving me a good stimulus. I'm not too worried about, I'm going to be exhausted doing this and I'm just going to be drained and blah 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 blah. And the funny thing is, it doesn't drain me for my top set. I feel pretty comfortable going into my top set. I've always felt comfortable doing ascending on squats. Even though I do like a pretty heavy, maybe 6 reps, 200 or 210 or whatever the hell, I can then go to a top single or a top double and do that relatively heavy as well. I don't feel that fatigued going into it compared to some other people, which is unusual because I am quite long-limbed. I do have an unconventional squat pattern. It doesn't, go right up and down. I'm not a big belly squatter, even though I do feel like I've got a big belly. But it doesn't feel like I'm going in there doing ascending, exhausting myself, and then doing a top single and feeling exhausted doing it. People that think here's a fatigued single PB, for me it's just here's a PB on squats regardless if I do a top single or a ascend single, doesn't really matter. It is really interesting that way. I'd like to see how a top set of squats go, so warming up to it rather than ascending to it, which we are kind of changing up now for squats, where we changed our squats from Saturday to Sunday, just to give us a day's rest between conventional and low bars, which I think is going to make a significant difference because previous blocks I've always had a day's rest between squats and deadlifts, but the last few blocks I've had deadlifts into squats because we only just got into conventionals. It wasn't that fatiguing, but now that I'm kind of like unlocking the potential of conventionals, it's really getting some fatigue up leading into low bars, so we changed that to the Sunday. But one thing that we changed on low bars or primary squats is instead of doing all our ascending sets, so 3x5 or 3x4 or whatever, and then going into a top single, we're going into just one ascending set, so a set of 4, which is basically like just 4 reps of the last warm-up, and then we go into our top singles. So top single, 3 top singles just to kind of do a last warm-up on a single and then go into the single. Then we do a drop set of double, and then we do 2 sets of 4 for drop sets. So I am really interested to see how I do react to that. I think that from what we've been doing, it's been a positive reaction. So we'll just stick with it, see how it goes, and push from there. But again, I really want to push squats. I want to make sure that my squats are a significant factor to my total. I've always felt like I haven't really been able to push squats or put squats as a top lift for me. It was up until last year when I squatted that 250 where I felt like it was making a significant difference. But when this kind of dropped off recently, it did kind of put me down a little bit for squats, where I was thinking, oh, this isn't feeling good. I'm not squatting 250 anymore. I failed 250 after I did that conventional blah, 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 blah. I was really getting into my head. And especially in that session, it really does affect you when you do miss something. You know, when you did it at under 100 kilos, relatively easy. But now coming into, you know, increased body weight, 105s, and then missing it, you just think to yourself, oh no, everything's falling apart, blah, 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 blah. But you just try and remind yourself, and especially you remind this to all your lifters, so you should remind this to yourself, is that progression isn't a linear line. So you see other people in there, or no, they're progressing in a linear line, and I'm not. Who cares? You're not that other person, you're yourself, and you focus on how you progress and how well you, and you know, the pattern that you progress. And it can be a squiggly line, but as long as it's, you know, a linear trend, doesn't fucking matter. That's your main focus. It's a linear trend, and that's the main focus you should have. But I do really think that fail from 250 last block was specifically because we did do deadlift prior to squats, like that day that we less than 24 hours rest. So now that we kind of know that, we want to figure out, okay, why isn't squats progressing as fast as they used to be? So I think that's the main determining factor in making a significant difference to my squats, and making that squat a significant difference to my total. So yeah, I am really keen to fix squats, make squats feel good, and make sure that I can make it a really big deal, you know. So I want to be squatting 270 by the end of this year, 20 kilos PB, but I don't care. Just, you know, aim for the stars and reach the moon. It doesn't really matter. If I could get 260 to 270, that'd be awesome. But coming into the single, 205, felt really comfortable. I kind of noticed something that I was doing where I wasn't trying to up the top sink into the midfoot. I would just sink into whatever felt comfortable, then I was able to push into the midfoot. And that really helped create that pressure up top, where I was thinking of that gas pedal, because that was a main cue that I really enjoyed doing, gas pedal. But then I was thinking, okay, let's sink into the gas pedal up top, but now I'm not. I'm sinking almost into just, you know, between the midfoot and then able to push into the gas pedal. So let's see how that squat cue works, and if it works, then sweep, let's get a 270. But again, going into a secondary bench or quaternary bench, I don't know how many benches I'm doing now, but I'm always doing my pec warm-ups, my rotator cuff warm-ups, everything like that, all the fucking time. I don't care what bench variation it is. If it's an easy bench variation, like this is only a 2 sets of 6. I'm doing 2 sets of 6 at around 120 and 125, but I'm still doing my rotator cuff warm-ups, because I know that it is important, not only for this session and this set right here, but leading into my next bench session or my next session of bench that's a lot heavier. I'm doing 2 heavy bench sessions a week. So after this day on the Wednesday, I do another heavy bench session, which is a primary bench, which we've really focused on leaving slightly lighter than our Saturday main bench. But if I can warm up my rotator cuff here now, then train, you know, 12 hours later or less than that, because I train here in the evening and then the next day I train midday or even late morning, I make sure that I'm warmed up for that next session. That's my main mentality behind it. So I'm always doing it. And that's what the warm-ups are. If you do these certain warm-ups, priming yourself for that session, whether it's the session on the day or the session for the next day, it's really important to do that consistently. It's what training is, you know, it's getting something primed or something stronger. And if you're not doing it consistently, if you're leaving stones unturned, then you're not doing it properly. So I've always found that really sticking with that bench warm-up, making sure that my rotator cuffs feel nice and warmed up, making sure that my pec feels nice and warmed up, has really made a significant difference for basically all my bench sessions. But yeah, this session I was deciding to do a little bit extra than what I usually do. Having this quaternary bench press keep the same weight all the way through the block. I usually stick to, at the start of the block, 110 to 115, and then I just go 120 all the way through. But it was feeling pretty good. I was feeling like that this day actually feels significantly great. So I decided, okay, as long as we keep it an RP6, let's push it a little bit. So I decided to go from 120. After this, I go 125, and, you know, makes a 5 kilo difference. it's still a little bit of a difference from both perspectives. It might be too much, it might be too little, but that's what we wanted to make sure to just kind of keep pushing it really slowly each and every block. And that's what I kind of like about these sessions, or these specific lifts, where we keep it relatively the same throughout the whole block. We don't try and progressive overload it like our compound session. This isn't what it's about. We're priming ourselves for the bench press, and we're making sure that we're covering all bases. We're making sure we cover all the volume as much as we can. In this case, it's only 2x6, but 2x6, that's 12 reps that we've increased from our, I don't know how many reps I'm doing a week on bench press, maybe 50 reps, I don't know, but we've increased it throughout the week, and that's the most important thing, the weekly volume that I can handle. But this next set of 125 really feels a lot better. I like the idea of having a little bit of an ascending set, so having that 120 to 125, because that 5 kilo difference doesn't make a huge difference, but for me, I always felt that 5 kilos on bench press really primes me. That's something we've changed on our compound benches. I always pushed like a big significant jump from the last warm up to the first top set. But recently I found out that if I do a small jump, I'm really primed. The other day I did 157.5 as the last warm up, and then I did 162 as the top set, and it felt so good. The top set felt so much better than the last warm up because I primed myself. So that's what I'm really considering with bench. That 5 kilos can be a significant difference. I always felt that the last warm up always feels shit. I forget about that. I don't care how the last warm up felt. If the last warm up felt not the best, I always know that my top set's going to feel better, and that's the mentality I've been having on bench press now. So just with this session, I thought, hey, why not increase it by 5 kilos as long as it stays within RP6, which it did for the 120 and then the 125 because I was more primed. That's what I was happy with, and that's what made me feel a lot better coming into this session. Onto my accessories, I got my stiff leg deadlifts, which I really do like. I didn't like them at the start because they really got a weird feeling in my hamstrings. They felt like a really nervy stretch or a CNS stretch. But from what I've been told, that's the way that the stiff leg deadlift should feel. It shouldn't be an RDL. You should focus on shifting the tailbone to the roof. You shouldn't focus on shifting the hips back. I really think that this has been a major thing for my conventional deadlifts, because I don't do any other accessory conventional deadlift other than this and maybe hamstring curls and a lot of back extensions. So I don't do a secondary deadlift, I just do my conventional deadlift, and then this is probably my heaviest exposure for a secondary deadlift. So I've been making sure that I'm taking these seriously and pushing them really well. But yeah, I've been liking them, but I'm keen to kind of get into a more specific secondary deadlift and see how that pushes my deadlift. But not yet, not until after this comp. Going into my wide grip rows, and then lastly into my bicep curls and shoulder presses. But I've been liking my accessories, I've been liking pushing them, even though I've keeping the weight relatively the same. Again, my cable rows, I'm not expecting to really do a full stack. As long as it sticks to the RP, that's my main goal. But yeah, this was a really good session, guys. I've been changing my Tuesdays to evenings so I can train with a lot of the guys that I see at the gym, rather than just standing there like a spare dick. Or, I have the obligation to go to the gym earlier and see all my clients and see all the clients at the gym, which I've been really liking. So even though I come in there reasonably tired because after 4 p.m. I'm an EP boy, but yeah, this session was really good. Been liking the secondary squats, been liking the accessory bench presses, and then been liking those stiff leg deadlifts. They've been making things feel hella comfortable. But other than that, guys, I'll leave it here so you can watch me pump my biceps, pump my shoulders. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.